Southside 457.
Did you know that the Southside on Lamar is a National Historic Building?
This building tells a story.
I need a story to connect to with my heart.
There are so many stories in this building.
I wanted to teach other people how to naturally love themselves, and so I ventured into the field of opening my own spot.
There are people in this building with a passion to share what they know.
When I share my knowledge and my skills and my gift, I'm serving my purpose.
Preachers, teachers, architects, attorneys, engineers, artists of all kinds in this building.
What makes this place tick to me and makes it exciting is the combination of so many different kinds of people.
It's like a melting pot.
It's like a melting pot.
15 years, I've never regretted being here at Southside.
Welcome to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr. Let's get it on. You can't miss the princess.
Listen, Linda, listen.
Southside 457.
Welcome to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr., and today we have another special guest, writer, author of the book Going For It, published author, should I say. Welcome to the show, Paul Salfen.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome
Appreciate
to the show,
you.
man.
Yeah.
Thank you. So one of the questions that I always ask everybody that comes on the show is, how'd you get to the South Side? Because you don't just end up here. Mm-hmm. You either get invited, you don't bump into it. So, what's your story?
I was abducted.
You was abducted? Yeah.
No. Southside. Wow, yeah. Southside did find me. I was the editor-in-chief of Envy magazine here in Dallas back when we had print magazines, and we had a deal with Southside. And I had met Jack Matthews and his daughter Shannon, and they were so friendly, and we ended up having a deal with them, and so I ended up living here, and I was in 402 for almost 6 years. So right in the corner, nice view of what is now, I guess, the Canvas. You know, but back then it was just a haunted, empty building, and so I just got a good view of Ghosts and a good view of downtown, and that is also where I shot the cover of my book. Well, what ended up being the cover of my book at the time was just an editor's letter, where I was jumping in the pool. I don't know if you could see this, but yeah, so I was in a full suit and jumped right in the Southside pool and ruined the suit, ruined the shoes, but totally worth it.
Yeah. So, how long did you live in the Southside?
Almost 6 years. Yeah,
6 years.
I think so. And it was great. I loved all the characters here. And you would always find me racing down that parking garage and then running up the elevators, always run into something. But I really enjoyed having opening bell here, and got a lot of work done there, and having a little grocery store here. And I don't know, I didn't leave. Of course, this now feels like the dark ages because this was before we had Zoom meetings, And if that was the case, I would have never left.
Yeah.
And we didn't have as good a food.
Well, come on back.
I'll come back. Why not?
So tell me. So, are you from Dallas originally?
Not originally. So, I was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Clarksdale, Mississippi,
home of the blues.
I don't hear any of that drawl.
Well, I wasn't there long enough.
Okay.
And then lived a little bit in in the middle of Texas, growing up. But then went to Philadelphia for high school, college, and a little bit beyond that. So I went to school at Penn State, and Philly was a really great place to just to learn more about life and learn more.
A lot of culture.
A lot of culture, but but still remained a Cowboys fan, and because actually those were the good times for the Cowboys. Yeah. And then I graduated and came back here, and it's kind of funny. I got my start out there, and that's kind of why I have a soft spot in my heart for it. I don't know if you ever had a broadcasting class. Do you have one of those where where the students did the weather, the news, the sports, and all that stuff? Well, so they each assigned us to do things, and the teacher assigned me to do the weather, which is terrible. I was a terrible weatherman. Long hair and rock t-shirts, and I was awful. Well,
it's going to snow.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And it was back in the dark ages, so they had big cardboard cutouts.
They had the green screen.
Yeah, no, not even.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had like instead of the
Had a rain cloud.
teleprompters, yeah, they're like holding it up, squinting, trying to see what was going on, and so the teacher was very dismissive of me. He said, "Wow, you like music? Go talk to some bands." So what did I do? I took the big clunky cameras and we knocked on the backstage doors, side doors. And we just basically we're like TMZ. We just kamikazed a whole bunch of big bands.
Yeah.
Hey, our show sucks. Will you be on it? and every single band said yes. So there's like Stone Temple Pilots, Megadeth, like all these big bands. And the teacher, we come back with all this great footage, and the teacher literally smacks his head and he goes, "I meant bands in the school." Oh. And we're like, "Oh." He's like, "But good job. I don't know how you figured it out." And then but then I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like MTV. I wanted to go talk to all the greats. So then I went to Penn State and I went to the school newspaper like I knew what I was doing. I go, "Okay, here's what I can do. I can interview all the big bands." And they go, "No, absolutely not. That has nothing to do with our school." I go, "Well, people like music, right?" No, they did not go for it. So I was managing a record store there, and we started an online music magazine. Made all these wild requests, and got a whole lot of them.
An online music magazine. And what year was this?
Oh gosh, let's see. This was 98, 99.
Yeah, that's right in that you were like almost before your time.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, well, that was great because we could make these wild requests like to David Bowie or something like that.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Okay." Oh, it's an online thing. It's a big deal,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin, Mick Taylor from the Stones. Let's see, there's Kid Rock. There's all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Some more big at the
Is this
time.
stuff still out there now? Can you go see it now?
Yeah, some of them have lived on, have gotten reposted elsewhere, but a lot of it unfortunately fell out. And then once I graduated, I went down to Dallas Morning News here, and I said, "Hey, I want to do the celebrity interviews." And they're like, "Yeah, you and everybody else." I go, "What have you done?" And I handed them a big packet, that I'd printed out back when we printed things out, and they saw the stuff I did, and they said, "All right, well, you're up." And then I just kind of worked my way through, and
And how long ago was this?
This was in 2000. I graduated, and so this was right around then.
Okay.
Scary time.
Is that when you?
Y2K.
So you started writing your book back in 2000?
Not really. No, I started writing my book. So, gosh, what was it? About 6 years ago, I had a strange series of events happen. I got hit by a drunk driver. Got hit by an 18-wheeler and got caught in a car that was on fire, and,
oh, wow.
And all without a scratch, came out of there, and I go, I have something left to do,
Yeah.
And so what I did was I was doing interviews for our show on Fox Sports and providing content for WFAA and stuff like that. And what I noticed is all the interviews I was doing, they were cutting out what I felt was the good stuff.
Yeah.
Like I interviewed Hugh Jackman about playing the Wolverine, and there's all this great stuff about his life, his career, how he struggled, how he went through things. And then, the only part they used is a part where he says, "Well, I wouldn't be in this kind of shape if I wasn't playing the Wolverine." They're like, and now the X-Men open, and you're like, no. And then, same thing happened with,
And did they own the content?
No. Actually, thankfully, I brought it to them. So, I've always booked all my own interviews,
That's
and
good.
so I've always kept ownership of my content, which is great.
Yeah.
But it just kept happening over and over again. Ben Stiller talking about how he gave someone a tape that he made of a parody of The Color of Money and turned it into Saturday Night Live. Had someone walk it up the elevator and put it on someone's desk, and they cut that right out. They're just like, "And this movie opens on Friday," and I'm just like, "Come on, you're leaving out the good stuff." And I just thought. And I just started typing it up like I was writing an article. And I thought, if all these people gave me all this great wisdom and knowledge, it'd be wrong to keep it to myself. So I just started doing it, and I started realizing, wait, I have so much good stuff. So I started going through my archives, and I started asking stuff specifically about what I thought people would want to know, which is their advice, what they've learned, what they do differently, and the crazy stories about how they made it. Yeah. And I put them all together, and all of a sudden it just became this monster of a book. And it's been fun to work on, and now it's finally out, and it's won 4 awards in the last 3 months it's been out, and we're getting in schools and libraries, and I'm just trying to provide some inspiration to people. Hope it's working.
So that's good, man. What prompted you to start doing interviews with people? I mean, I know you had the school thing. You just it was like you stumbled up on it, but what kept you doing it?
Just because I think it recharged me every time I talked to somebody that had a really cool story. It just re-energized me, and I thought, I really like telling other people's stories if they're really interesting.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I'd go back to classes at Penn State, and it'd just be so boring to me. Yeah. All I would want to do is look forward to the next interview that I was doing. And so, through the record store, I was just making all these wild requests, and I got approved for so many of them.
Yeah.
And my professor said to me, he goes, it's very obvious when you're working on something you like.
Yeah.
As opposed to when you don't, because my grades were like this on the stuff I liked and this on the stuff I didn't care about. And he said, so what does that tell you? You're always going to have to work on something that you care about. And so this seemed to be the best thing, is telling other people's great stories and trying to inspire other people.
Yeah. So you're a writer.
Mm-hmm.
You wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
The book came from the interviews.
Yes.
But you were a writer first, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how did you get into doing writing? Like, how did you get into writing?
Back in college, that was
that's what you went to school for writing?
Sort of, yeah.
Like journalism or?
No, actually, I never took a journalism class.
Just creative writing or literature?
Yeah. So my father is a great writer. My grandfather is a great writer. Both of my grandfathers have written books, and it's just something that's just kind of in me. Like, you could hand me a document and say, yeah, what's wrong with this? And I could, it's kind of like the Microsoft Word version, or ChatGPT. But I'm the human version, like I can go, okay, move this up here, and I can't tell you why.
Yeah.
It's just something I've always had about me.
Like a wordsmith.
Yeah, my mom's like that too. She can look at something and be like, well, move that over here. Why did you have this here? Maybe start it with here. And, it's just it's a gift, really,
So the process from Mississippi to Mississippi to
Texas,
to
and
Texas,
to Philadelphia, back to Texas.
So how old were you in Mississippi before you moved to Texas?
Oh gosh, that was my first 2 years of my life. So
2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then Texas. How old were you? You grew up in Texas.
Yeah. So I went to elementary school here in the colony, actually.
Oh, wow.
And then went to middle school in Temple, Texas, outside of Austin.
Temple, Texas.
And then we moved to Philly, and what a culture shock that was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So did you live Philly proper, like in the city? Or did you live on the outside?
In the suburbs,
okay.
in a place called Doylestown.
Okay.
And it was great. I mean, that's where I learned to play guitar. That's where I got to, experience New York City every single week. And I was just... as soon as I got my license, I was off. I was always doing something, whether it's being at clubs or bars or watching bands play or, my friend knew some people up at NBC. And so we'd go to the Saturday Night Live parties, and we almost had no business being there, but we were there and it was fun.
So as a writer, we talked a little bit about this out there a little bit. So how do you feel like ChatGPT is affecting the whole just writing gamut?
It affects a lot, It absolutely does not replace human creativity.
Yeah.
Although it's pretty good, and it's getting better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of my friends that cannot write, they can't spell, they can't, they're, not that good at coming up with things. My big part of what I do is I kind of white label stuff for people. So I write corporate bios, I write about companies or about products, about other things, and my name's not even on it. But I enjoy doing that. But now I think a lot of people can say, what's a great thing about this camera? And ChatGPT, whereas it takes me a long time to go and research the camera, see the best parts of it. So I understand why people use it. It's cheaper and it's faster, but it's not always right, And certainly, like with this book, I had to transcribe every single one of these interviews. I listened to every single moment of it and typed it up myself. It would have been a whole lot easier if I would have used one of the AI programs and,
Yeah.
had it listen to it. And they are getting a lot closer, but every word matters.
Yeah.
English language is a tricky one. And so if you get a couple words wrong, it could totally change the meaning. And
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be anything worse than maybe having somebody like Denzel Washington chastise you for being like, I didn't say that. I said this,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think it's just better to be safe. But yeah, AI has changed everything, But it is helpful in other ways. I mean, I actually did find myself on ChatGPT asking, what are the best ways to market your book?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gave some good tips.
So do you think that AI, specifically ChatGPT, you think that not for the writer, but for like the business, you think the businesses will stop depending more on like the writers and take a quote unquote dumber down version of white labeling and things that you do? You think it's going to become more acceptable and to say, okay, well, we'll just take this. I mean, this is pennies on what we have to pay this guy. You think it's going to affect the bottom line eventually, or?
Yeah, I think so. But that's not necessarily a terrible thing. I mean, you kind of have to accept that technology will do those things. I mean, if you think about how many jobs in in call centers, or just anything, naturally we're going to get replaced by other things. But we have to find what makes us special and unique that we can't be replaced with computers. Like the art that you do.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, there's some great art programs where you can.
Oh yeah, there.
But does that replace what you do? Absolutely not. Could a computer replicate that? No. I mean, it could come up with something cool, but it's something cool that's just different.
Yeah.
Nothing replaces the soul of a human.
Yeah.
And that's why with music too. Gosh, there's some great AI music, but it's still not. There's no replacement for the real deal.
Yeah. So do you feel like so you don't feel any kind of threat or anything with AI and what you do, and do you feel like you need to maybe? Because I know sometimes for me, I feel like, man, I need to go ahead and push the gas on some of these things while I'm ahead of it before Do you feel like that?
I mean, I don't know. I hate to see it as a threat. I like to see how I can work with it rather than against it. Because it's coming, whether we like it or not. It's already here.
I feel the same way.
But it's kind of like with what I do with interviews. There's a time when it was hard for me to come up because there's a time when if you didn't work for a daily newspaper or a weekly paper, or a TV station, or a radio station, it was hard to get a really good interview. And then they started letting the .com people in, like me. And then they started, then it became bloggers. Now it's influencers, and there's always going to be somebody. They're probably going to have AI people do interviews at some point.
Oh yeah, they already do.
And, it's the thing is when you interview high level people like I do, like the Tom Cruise and Willie Nelson and Beyonce and, all the people that you see in the book, a big part of the factor of who they choose to interview is who they like, who they know is not going to cause a problem. If I don't know, Jennifer Lawrence is doing a big day of interviews and she's got 2 hours of TV interviews, and they bring in some joker and he asks a bad question, that could ruin the whole day.
Yeah.
And so they would rather have somebody, just because it's an influencer that's kind of cool right now. He's going to do a joke or play a word association or would you rather game or something like that that's going to make them mad. They don't want that. On the same token, there's people like Ice Cube who says AI is the devil, and
he says AI is the devil.
And and so so if there's an AI avatar that's going to interview people, I could type up all the questions that I think AI should ask somebody, and it might be interesting. There's somebody like Ice Cube may not do it. He'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. I want like a human to ask me the questions. But then there's other people. Brad Pitt may be like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll talk to the computer.
Yeah.
So in this book, there's 3 sections. There's advice, there's wisdom, and there's Hail Mary moments. Now, my co-host is Drew Pearson, who caught the Hail Mary, went to the Hall of Fame. And so on the show, we asked people their Hail Mary moment, which is the moment in their life or career where they just had to go for it and it worked out for them. I've got it down to where when I do interviews, I always ask them about what they're promoting, kind of fun stories, cool things, and then I go through those 3 questions, and then I ask them about what's coming up and all that, and that's kind of the meat of the interview. It's now to a point to where if I wanted to ask those 3 questions, like the advice, the wisdom, the Hail Mary moment, I could maybe have an AI version of myself, or send out questions and just have them come back. But I'd rather have, like, if somebody said, I'm trying to think of somebody I haven't interviewed that would be really cool. Let's see. Let's just say Robert Downey Jr., right? He's very busy. Do you want to send out the questions, with your little avatar, and then he'll send it back? Do I want to do that? I mean, if that's the only way to do it, maybe. But, I'm kind of stubborn. I want to actually talk to him. I want to know that he said that, and the questions came from me and the answer came from him. That's why email interviews are a little rough too. People try and do those, but I don't like them.
Okay, so I'm going to take one of your questions.
All right.
What's some advice that you've learned? What's some of the best advice that you've learned over the years?
Man, I'd never give up. The thing is the reason I called it Going For It is the common denominator with all these people is that they never gave up. They hung in there maybe longer than they should have. But there's so many stories in there about how many people have been so close to quitting, for whatever reason. They ran out of money, they ran out of time, their pressure from their parents, from whoever. The only people that have truly done it are the people who have just like, I'm still going. Yeah. And you have to absolutely love something to keep doing it. So, when people say, well, how do you do it? Like, I just didn't take no for an answer. Maybe I'm just stubborn. Maybe it makes me stupid. I don't know. But I just I never quit, we were just having a lunch meeting and I stopped because I had a Zoom, for 10 minutes with Bernie Williams from the Yankees. But why wouldn't I do that,
Yeah.
But I had to interrupt my lunch meeting and go back to it, And then I'm supposed to have a meeting now, but I stopped to do it. It's like I always make things work. So I guess that would be the other things is just
adaptable.
Always make it work. Yeah. And it's going to change, just like we're saying with AI. At some point, what I'm doing is going to change because of AI, and maybe it has a little bit, but it changed because of influencers. It also changed because of the internet. So, just have to roll with it.
So I'm going to take another one of your questions.
All right.
What's a Hail Mary moment for you?
Well, that actually, one of the big ones is getting on the show with Drew. Drew Pearson is a Cowboys legend, and people just love that guy, and I met him at an event and I wasn't as familiar with him, as he played around the time I was born, and so a friend of mine was a producer of a show coming up on Fox Sports, and he said, Paul, this is Drew. Drew's got a show on Fox Sports. I said, hey, if you ever need an ugly white guy to, show up and do celebrity interviews, I'm your guy. And he said, I'll see you on Thursday. And I was like, okay, that's it. And then a few shows in, I go, how did you know? He goes, well, I didn't. It's kind of like football. It's like you come off the bench and throw it to you. If you catch it, then you're gonna come up again another play.
You can start again.
You can go back on the bench.
Yeah.
And that's really what happened. I brought a big interview to him the first show, and then said, can you do it again the second show? Yeah, third show, fourth show. So now every single show I've got a big interview that I bring to the table, and makes the show just a little bigger, a little better.
Yeah, that's kind of like that's a lesson for life. Just I always say, what? Well, when I get opportunities, sometimes you start thinking about it. Well, that's kind of I don't know if I'm ready for that opportunity, but I've learned to say yes and figure it out.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes, and figure it out. Because the worst thing that can happen is you stay where you are.
Yeah.
The best thing that can happen is you get past where you are. Mm-hmm. So I bet on progress versus stagnation any day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a good.
And when are you ever ready? I mean,
yeah, right.
I mean, next week we have someone from PBS flying in to do a national interview with me, and I feel like there's so much I need to do. I need to, like trim up a little bit and get a haircut. Like, I don't know. I may not have time to. I may not get everything done. I may not have gotten enough sleep, but you just got to do it. You got to roll with it, you know? And it's pretty exciting just to, when you open up and let all the opportunities come your way, because you never know where they're going to come from,
So, what do you see? What's next for you?
Well, next is volume 2. So the book was so long. So I interviewed 300 something celebrities in the book for volume 1. And I actually had it as both of them as one volume. And when we printed it out, it made such a loud thud when it landed on the table. I was like, "Oh my God, no one's going to read this."
Like a Robert Greene book or something.
Too big, yeah. And right now the book is a smaller book. It's easy to read. It's easy to put in your, in your bag. Put it on the back of the toilet. Put it on your, whatever. It's something simple. You can turn to any page and get some good knowledge, some good wisdom out of it. And I thought it better to do that than do some giant coffee table book or some big, cumbersome book that's hard, And I just wanted it to look different, feel different, and be different. And so, volume 2 is done. And I'm working on volume 3 right now, which is actually the best one of the 3, because I keep interviewing bigger and bigger people, and so you're going to see some really cool people like Post Malone and lots of spiritual leaders. It's just a really, really interesting. It gets even better. And right now I'm working on the Going Forward show. So it's going to be 20 episodes to start on Roku and some other platforms, and I'm just trying to do something to help people. So, in this we'll talk about people's advice and wisdom and what they've learned in their going forward moments. But then I want to have like resources, for people to, how can we do better? Because you don't want to just talk at them, you want to talk with them,
Yeah,
so,
you want to give them some actionable items.
Something, and, if I can help any people, then I've done my job.
So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want people to get out of the book?
I want them to find some inspiration and just know it's not done, no matter what age you are, no matter what circumstances you've been in. There's somebody in there that kind of is parallel, that's has similarities to you, that they struggle with the same things. There's people in there that have gone about it all the wrong ways, myself included. There's people in there that have slept in cars, borrowed money, lived on the streets.
So speaking to that,
Yeah.
like, for this audience, just tell just a brief story of somebody that's in the book, and just kind of just give a little nugget of what's in that, what they can expect.
So Jennifer Lawrence, who we all know is a big actress and 13 going on 30, is married to Ben Affleck, has all kinds of things going on. She was couch surfing up in New York for a while. Our good friend Sir Earl Toon from Kool and the Gang, was sleeping on a park bench, and he had a newspaper over him when the rain was coming down, and he had an epiphany about a big song. Let's see, there's people who are just broke. Crazy Eyes from Orange is the New Black. She gave herself a time limit, and 5 o'clock on this particular day at 5:05 the phone rings, and it's that. It's like there's certain things that people just go through, and they just they struggle just like we do, and so it really humanizes the experience of this all, because it's so easy for us to dismiss it and go, rich and famous, they don't have anything to worry about, they weren't always like that, and sometimes it ebbs and flows. Sometimes there's high success points for these people, and then super, super lows that we just don't even know about, because it's easy for us to go, they're doing fine, and a lot of times they're not, and sometimes it's up here.
So I believe that there's like power, or like, let's say power, in stories.
Yeah.
Why do you believe that there's power in stories?
Because I've experienced it myself. A big part of why I continue to do what I do is because these stories power me. and I'm hoping these stories will power other people. And I'm hoping at some point someone will have read this book and thought, you know what, I'm not going to give up either. And then they'll come to me and say, you know what, I read this book, I decided to keep going. That, if it happens once, makes it totally worth it. And I think the story, we've always been, since we're cavemen around the fire, we've always been storytellers, and we're just getting better at it now. And now we've got AI.
Yeah.
But you know, it's important to share the human experience and to help not only it's educate, inspire, and entertain. Those are the three things I try and make sure everything I do falls under.
Right on. Well, mentor.
Yes.
Do you have a mentor? Did you have any mentorship or anybody?
Yeah, I feel like I've had a whole bunch of many mentors. You know, not anyone that's sort of shown me the ropes and taken me around or whatever, but there's been people, little angels along the way that have kind of picked me up and dusted me off and gone, okay, you can do this. You know, there's a guy here, John Hayden, known as Hayden. He's in a film festival circuit, and he's someone that really sort of believed in me and picked me up and dusted me off, and you know, all the things I said. Well, you know, this book takes money, it takes time, it takes, you know, whatever. He was always there to look at it, and even though he'd never written a book and he didn't understand the book business, he was always like, well, why don't you try this? Or, you know, let's print out a copy. Let's see what it looks like. You know, just people like that help along the way. But I try and help out people too. You know, one of our city's great philanthropists, Trammell Crowe, is a friend of mine. And, you know, he asked me to go speak at the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy, which has students that are just so smart and so cool and so it's the future right there, you know, and that I'm super happy to do. And a couple of them
At the male school?
Yeah.
My son went there for a couple years.
And just so, man, the smartest kids. It's like if I was half as smart as any one of those kids when I was a kid, I'd be doing even better right now. But it's cool to see. And so anytime anyone asks for help or advice or anything, I'm always willing to do it because, you know, that's where I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I fumbled my way up to here.
So speaking of that, can you think of a moment when you almost gave up?
Gosh, yeah. Every year. There's all kinds of times when I'm like, that's it, I'm done. You know?
Was there a moment that you almost gave up and then there was a victorious outcome after that because you didn't give up? And you're like, man, I'm so glad I didn't give up.
Yeah. Actually, right before this book, I just thought, you know, well, especially during the pandemic, you know, we got to a point, I was about to put out the book, and then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden people started kind of turning on celebrities a little bit, you know, because they're telling us to do this and do that, and we're, you know, easy for you to say you got millions of dollars or whatever it is. And I just thought, man, no one wants to hear about celebrities right now. Who knows if we're ever even going to go outside again, you know?
Yeah.
That was a weird time. Like, there's a lot of my friends that are touring musicians, and they thought they would never play concerts again. And, you know, there's people that are theater actors that thought they'd never see a playhouse again. Thankfully, we got through all that. But, you know, there's a time where I just almost just threw out the book and was like, who cares, you know? And that was really sad, you know, because that would have been really sad to not be able to spend all that time and put all that effort into it and have all this knowledge. Like, and I just thought, you know, if this stuff, you know, if I throw it out, it's thrown out for good. You know, no one's ever gonna. If I die, it dies with me. You know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just thinking about all. You know, I'm thinking about all the files right now that I have of interviews that no one will go and find if, you know, if something happens to me. So it's sort of my cosmic duty to make sure this stuff gets out there in the world.
So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, but this is, what are you most passionate about?
Right. Well, I guess professionally that you know, just having this book out there in the world and seeing it turn into something else, you know. The interesting part about when I turned in the book, I said, okay, great, I'm done. And they go, oh no, now the work begins. And that's really true.
Yeah.
It doesn't sell itself, I mean, it does in a way of people read it, but like somehow people have to find it. You know?
Especially with everything that's out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about this. Like, why are they not doing a feature on CNN? Well, have I sent it there? Have I reached out to anyone there? No, I haven't. That's why I've got a whole list of people, and it's like the work never ends,
Yeah.
Why are they not carrying it at Penn State where I went to school? Oh, I didn't let them know about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I bring it all back to me. And so it's sort of lit a fire under me, and that's really kind of what I'm passionate about. Is like, it's one thing if people don't want to talk about the book, if they don't want to hear about it, if they don't want to read it, fine, as long as they know about it.
Well, that's good.
That's what I'm trying to do, is just get the knowledge out there.
Well, man, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to say or share?
It's a good question. I mean, I feel like we've gone over most things except for what is the meaning of life.
We'll take a stab at it.
And when will the Cowboys win a Super Bowl? But those are unrelated.
But so you do, speaking of Drew Pearson, you currently do a show with Drew Pearson.
I do, yes. Mm-hmm.
And what is that show?
Yeah, it's called The Ultimate Hail Mary, and it's so Drew and I did Drew Pearson Show on Fox Sports. We did Drew Pearson Live on KTXD and ABC, and now it's a podcast.
And that's what you do with Faz.
Yes, with Faz and Malcolm.
Yeah.
That's our team. Yeah. And it's cool. Every week we have a sports guest and an entertainment guest, and we talk about a little bit about the Cowboys and just about whatever we want. That's the cool part about it.
Yeah.
And then I write and edit for AM/FM Magazine out of Austin. And part of the Critics' Choice Awards, and do movie reviews every week on KLAK, and just basically I say yes to everything and figure out how to time manage it later.
Yeah, that's kind of like how I do it too.
Yeah, and I'm on the board of
like this interview, right?
Yeah,
let's do it. Well, right. I asked you, you said yes.
Yeah, and I'm on the board of a charity called Charity Road, where our founder, Tessina Painter, she actually just got the Yellow Rose of Texas Award from Governor Abbott for saving 100 million pounds of food and putting it from getting it saved from being thrown away, putting on the tables of those who need it. So, and now we're helping to raise money so that people can rename roads and certain names. So it's a beautiful thing. So I just never stop working. If it sounds interesting, let's do it.
So before we get out of here, look at that camera and tell people where they can find you, where they can reach you, where they can get the book, where you'll be next, any of those things.
All right. Well, my name is Paul Salfen. I'm the author of Going For It. Imagine the book right here. And you can find me on every social media platform at Paul Salfen. And then goingforitbook.com is where you can find all the information. The book's available online on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, and any place they have good books. So if you have a bookstore, let's go.
Spell your name for them.
Yes, Salfen, Salfen. Okay. Short for von Salfenmoser, old Austrian name. Should I go back to it?
Well, I appreciate you for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I look forward to coming to talking to you about Volume 2. And who knows, maybe we'll end up working on something else.
Right on. So until next time, peace.
Southside 457.